Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you joining us today. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, Ritu Koshal. Ritu is the author of the book, The Empath's Journey, which TEDx speaker Andy Mort calls a fascinating insight into the life of a highly sensitive person. She's a silver medal awardee at the Rex Award, co-presented by the United Nations in India, and given to people creating social impact through their work. Ritu, it is such a pleasure to have you joining us today. Welcome.
It's such a pleasure, Melissa, to be here. I've followed your work for years, so it's a real pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. So for those who are listening, who are new to your work, tell us a little bit about it and the journey that brought you to do it.
So I'm basically a creative person. I've always been an artist. Even when I was not following that, I worked for several years, in the corporate field. But I have always been an artist, and I think now, and for many years, I have been practicing my art, which is writing. And but I love all sorts of art forms. I have painting, photography, dance, all of that. And I write about basically two things, sensitivity and creativity. So I started my blog walking through transitions around, I forget, around 8 years back. So it's been a while. And I started because, so I've always been a sensitive person. And like a lot of sensitive people, I grew up being told that I was too sensitive, by teachers and, some people around me. And it was probably around, I came across Dr. Elaine Aron's book in India. So it was a long while back, but I think I was not ready to actually read it. And I read it around 9 years back after I moved from India to the United States. And sort of the old ghosts of my, being too sensitive were again coming up for me. Because I was in a new country, in a new culture, and some people I knew told me that, I should be able to adjust pretty quickly, but it was taking me a while. So sensitivity again came to the fore for me then, and I was also sort of exploring my artistic path, and that kind of melded, and I started writing about sensitivity, and I write it, and because I'm a creative person, so sensitivity and creativity are the two things I blogged about. And my book actually came out of the blog because I felt like there were things, like deeper things I wanted to talk about, which you can't do within the scope of a blog. So my book is basically from a personal space and my own explorations of what it means to be a sensitive person and my journey to kind of find tools to channel that sensitivity. Yeah.
Fabulous. So I'm curious because when we're talking about tools to channel sensitivity, I know one thing that you like to work with are about dreams, which are such an interesting space for sensitive people. I identify with so much that you were talking about the creativity, the feeling too muchness. I think a lot of sensitive people identify with that also. But when we talk about dreams and the dream space and dream work, this is all sort of new to me. As a sensitive person, I have very vivid dreams. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, whoa, did that really happen? Or I often have dreams that are actually premonitions or of things that it almost feels like I'm reprocessing something that happened. It's like my dreams are a place to work it out. So I'm curious for you, what your experience with dream work has been like, your journey, your process, and how it dovetails for you with being a highly sensitive person.
So I have, like you, I've also always been the kind of person who's had very intense dreams, and especially during times in my life where I have been going through changes and transitions, like, when you're a teenager or you are moving cities and things like that. And so I've always been very attuned to my inner world and to my dream world and always curious about it because I was so in touch with it. And I remember even as a 16-year-old, so decades ago, having these intense dreams and feeling like they were signs. So I was like this idealistic INFP. So my personality type is INFP. And I remember I followed some dreams and I felt like they were signs, and it didn't work out too well for me. And I felt kind of betrayed from my dream world, as if even the world inside me was kind of, turning against me, or I was not understanding it. So for many years, I actually did not follow that curiosity, and I did not give dreams importance. But I have always been interested in the field. I was always interested in, Jungian work. I remember trying to read it as, as a teenager and finding it really hard, because if you do not understand the concepts, Carl Jung, his actual writing is hard unless you, of course, study it, which I didn't. So I came to dreams again 9 years back when I moved from India to the States, and my dreams are really intense. And this time, first of all, I gave myself permission to follow it, even though I had, heard from many people that, dreams are like nonsense, or I grew up in a family which was quite rational and which had left the dreams and old dreamers of India behind. So I grew up in a family of doctors and engineers and all of that. But this time I let myself follow my curiosity, and I started reading about it, and I started experimenting with my dream world, and basically to kind of encapsulate it, like what dreams are and how they can help us as sensitive people. Basically, the story of modern dream work can be told through two men, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. And for a while they were they worked very closely together, and Carl Jung was even supposed to sort of take over Freud's mantle. He was supposed to take the psychoanalytic movement forward, but their ideas about what the unconscious contains, it sort of changed. It sort of became different. So if you think about Freud, what Freudian theory says about dream work is that our dreams are processing a lot of our day-to-day conflicts, or it is working out something which is not socially acceptable. Like we might feel a lot of violence, or something which is not acceptable in our waking world. Our unconscious is processing that. So dreams are very important in Freudian psychology. But at Carl Jung, he acknowledges that there is a part of that in Jungian work. But unlike Freud, who says that sometimes our dreams are hiding, like our images are hiding our antisocial urges and all of that, what Jung also says is not only does the shadow contain the worst in us, but it also contains the best in us. Because we not only banish to the unconscious things which which are problematic, but we also banish things which are not socially acceptable in other ways. So maybe your creativity wasn't considered important. Maybe you love to sing, and that was not given importance because it was not considered practical, and for good reasons in some cases, like some people, it's hard to follow that, right? So what Jungian work says is that our images, the reason that dreams can feel so tricky at times is because dreams are speaking the language of nature, which is a language of symbols. And it is sort of like if I don't understand, let's say Spanish, and I only have, if I only know a few words, I can misinterpret the entire paragraph. So if I am not familiar with the language of symbols and metaphors, and I try to interpret it only from my conscious mind, I can completely get it wrong. And that's why dreams feel tricky. And that's why it's important. Jungian analysts or therapists, what they say is that you need to sort of look at the symbol from all angles and not come to an easy interpretation.
Yeah, so much information there. Wow. It never occurred to me that that the study of dreams was so big and so broad and encompassed so many different aspects. So I'm curious because I hear you talking about the symbol. What was coming to me as you were talking was maybe there are certain aspects in a dream, like a certain type of animal or a certain person or a certain event, and it's not meant to be interpreted literally, but it's what is it actually presenting? What is it offering? Where's the interpretation from it? Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So for example, if you have animals show up in your, so one assumption of Jungian dream work is that, so this is not a formula, so it might not apply like 100% of the time, but one big assumption is that all the different characters in the dream, including the dream setting, are basically representations of different parts of your psyche. So in your dream, you are, interfacing with these different parts of yourself, and your shadow, your shadow can show up in many different forms. If it shows up in human form as a different character, in the shape of your own friend or your sister or someone, that means that you are kind of close. You can close to that shadow material. You can integrate it more easily than, let's say, if it shows up as an animal who might feel very, very other to you. But at the same time, sometimes animals are like represent shadow material, but sometimes animals are also instincts. So if you have, let's say, injured instincts, you don't take care of certain parts of, let's say you have a tricky relationship with your body. You might have dreams of animals, who are skeletonous and who are ravished because you're not taking care of that part of yourself. And so, yes, these are symbolic contents. And the really important part of dream work is not to take dream symbols literally. If, let's say, a university shows up in your dream, it doesn't mean that you are regressing back to your university times necessarily, or that you need to go to a university, unless, of course, you want to. But it can be about, a lesson that you're learning. So it's a symbolic, it's a symbolic material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're talking about the university, I happen to have one semi-recurring dream where I am back in high school and I can't graduate because I didn't finish gym class. And I've always thought, wow, I still have this leftover anxiety from high school and hating gym class. And it's like, it's still living in me. And sometimes I wake up and I think, but I'm a grown adult. I'm not in high school anymore. I don't have to go to summer school to take gym so that I can graduate, which is sort of this recurring dream that I've had for many years. But I think what I'm hearing you say is it's not so literal. It might not be just that there's this old memory or this old worry or this old anxiety that's still living in me, that it could be representative of something else.
Right. And it could be it could be both. So it could be a little bit of that old feeling, which your psyche is, it might be working through, but it is likely that it is talking about something which is happening in your life right now. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. And even as you're talking about that, it's making me think, I haven't had that dream for quite a while, and I can't even remember when I last had it, but when I have it, it's so vivid and so triggering because it felt so real, so tangible. But I wonder if maybe there was something going on in my life at the time that felt similar to how it felt back in high school, and not wanting to go to that class or worrying that I wasn't going to pass and the impact that it would have and those kind of things.
Right. And maybe, and I'm guessing you did pass.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it is like, it could be like a mirror from your unconscious, because, dreams I find are both a bridge and a mirror. So I think it's possibly, I'm not sure, because another rule of dream work is, I can't interpret your dream like that, because dreams are very contextual. I can only offer you a suggestion, and you can tell me if that resonates with you or not. So it could be that your dream world is encouraging you that, maybe you are approaching this situation now like you did then, and maybe it's all going to be fine. It's not that, So it could be one thing.
I love that. It softens it because, especially when we have recurring dreams, I can't speak for anybody but myself. most of my recurring dreams are not pleasant ones.
Right.
I also had a recurring dream a lot when I was younger, when I was really young, and periodically over time, of being in a swimming pool with no ladder to get out, and then having like alligators in the pool. And I would always wake up just before an alligator caught me. And as a child, it was really frightening because it felt so vivid. And as I got older, it would happen less frequently, but it's that kind of a dream that it stays with you, right? Like usually when I wake up in the morning, nowadays my dreams are, I always refer to them like cotton candy or like clouds, like they just disappear, and I can't grab onto them most of the time. But when it's a recurring dream, or a dream that's particularly vivid, it's like it sticks with me, it stays with me in a stronger kind of a way. Is that your experience for many people?
Absolutely. I think for many of us, in our dreams, as some part of our psyche is working through something which we're going through in waking life. So just to sort of, like give you an example from my own dream world. Many years back, when I had just moved here, so I stay. So I didn't know a lot of friends, and like I'd followed my husband, and so I was in this space where I wanted to make friends as an adult. It was hard to do it, and I was finding that I was getting entangled with all sort of the wrong people. Which I think a lot of sensitives go through this journey where we learn to set boundaries, where we learn to sort of have empathy without giving too much, and all of that. And I remember I used to have these dreams for months on end where I am in an airport. I want to catch my flight, but I'm just surrounded by people. People are just pushing me, some people are pushing me here, other people are pushing me there, and I'm not able to get to the flight. And it was, in the first few years after I had moved, and and I was traveling to India and all of that. And so the dream felt kind of banal at first and nothing very great. But over like a longer period of time, I kept on having these dreams until in waking life, I sort of cleared out all of those patterns, and I stopped overgiving, and then the dream just disappeared. So I think the dreams are often a mirror of what is happening in our psychological life, because I was being, like I wanted to follow my path, and I was sort of being taken over by other people's. I was giving too much energy in different places. So I think to look at dreams as a mirror, and that something is being worked out in them. That's definitely part of dream work.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and I'm not sure if you have the experience really to answer this question, but because of my working with children, I'm really wondering, a lot of sensitive children resist sleeping. And for some of them, they're just too excited with life, or they haven't processed their day, and so it's hard for their body to settle down. But some sensitive children don't like being in their dream world. They either have scary dreams, uncomfortable dreams, just dreams that are too vivid and feel too intense for them to handle. And I'm wondering if you have any experience with dreams shifting as we mature, or what it is that's going on for children, if they're having the same sort of processing, psychological mirroring going on in their dreams, if it's the same for them as it is for adults, or if something changes throughout our lives.
So I haven't worked with children, and I don't, have a lot of experience with that. But from my own research and from whatever I've read from other people's research, I think children definitely, even as a sensitive child, I had intense dreams. I think it can be scary to go into your internal world, because all of us tend to take it too literally. So for example, sometimes children have these dreams where their parents are dying, and unless there is something really wrong in waking life, taking, as a child, you might take that literally. But often children have these dreams when they are, moving from one stage of childhood to another. And what needs to happen at such a stage is that the old kind of parent needs to die. You can't be the same parent to a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old that you are to a 5-year-old. So, so there is a need in the child. Let's say their parents are, behaving in the same way, or are, or they are not changing. So there is this psychological sort of story being played out, So there is something new which needs to happen in that relationship between the child and the parent. And it's really, really important for both the parents and the children not to take it literally, but to see that it is a symbolic representation of something which needs to change, let's say, in the relationship. So, yeah.
Yeah. So working with dreams, really, it's connecting us to something bigger. It's not just about processing what's going on in the day-to-day in a literal sense. So I think what I'm hearing you say is it's this bigger experience. It's almost like it's connecting us to our higher self, in a sense.
Right. And to our lower self. Yes, both to a higher and lower self. So I think the reason sometimes we are scared of our internal worlds is because we think that if we dig too deep, we are going to find the dragons and the monsters, which we all have to some degree or another. But your dragon, as they say, also holds your gold. Here the dragon is guarding something precious as well. So we find, so when we go into the unconscious, we are going to find the personal symbols. We are also going to find something really mysterious and what Jung calls the collective unconscious. Sometimes you will have dreams like you talked about your alligator dreams. Like I have had dreams of crocodiles in them, and we've not had personal experiences with these animals, but so they sort of represent these instinctual parts and these how human beings have sort of imaged instincts and imaged certain feelings, and those symbols are very, very common amongst a lot of people's dreams. So they come from this archetypal realm. So we touch both the mystery, and we also touch sometimes something which is giving us suggestions. Sometimes I've had dreams where, I've been going through things in my life and a dream figure says, oh, you're not angry, you're sad. Like in my real life, I'm feeling a lot of anger, but sometimes because anger is such a powerful emotion, you might find that easier to hold in real life. So you will find something which reflects back and observing something bigger than you. Yeah.
So you talked about also having dreams about alligators and crocodiles. And truth be told, I'm not sure that I could really tell them apart. I just know it was big teeth coming for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Are there other symbols that are more common that people dream about that they might be misinterpreting? Like, I love the way that you were talking about how, it may have represented fear, but underneath it was really like sadness.
Right.
Are there other common symbols? I often hear about people dreaming about like birds, for example, or, and I guess it tends to mostly be animals that I'm thinking of, but other things that come to mind
right.
that are commonly occurring?
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people dream of going, into basements, walking down the stairs, which is like reaching into the unconscious. Sometimes we dream of flying. So a lot of people have dreams of flying or being naked in public, and that's a very, very common one. So all of those are very, very common dreams across cultures. So across everything. It really shows us how connected we are and how similar we are just from the inside, And just to give you an example of, let's say, to go back to the crocodile. So I'll give you an example from when my crocodile dreams are coming up. I think my first interpretation of that was, oh, I need to grow a thicker skin. I've always been told that I need to grow a thicker skin. And now I'm here in this new country and I'm again being affected and I'm again feeling very, very sensitive. So, and I almost felt like my dream world was sort of, jeering at me. Like, like even my dreams were telling me that I needed to grow a thicker skin. But as I learned more about symbols, I remember I came across a book which talks about symbols from Africa. And in, I think in Ghana specifically, there is this symbol. Crocodile is a very transcendent symbol. And the reason it is worshipped is not because it has a thicker skin, but because of its ability to sort of, go into the water and be on the land. So I think that felt like an aha to me. Like my dream was telling me to be adaptable, to kind of move between cultures. It was not, it was actually the opposite of grow a thicker skin. It was like become more flexible, become, larger. So I think, so yes, so these symbols come up, but to really interpret them, you have to kind of look at their entire range of possible meanings.
Yeah. Wow. How powerful. What an incredible turnaround from it being, for me, what would be a really scary dream, to it being empowering and offering such wisdom and motivation to work with it.
Right. And it's a symbol which I have not consciously dreamed up, right? It's come from that archetypal realm of what a crocodile might mean. A crocodile can mean many things, but this is also one of the things a crocodile can mean.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, because there's so much buzz these days around guided imagery meditation, where we sort of set our intention to have this experience. I know, again, in working with children, especially children that are afraid to sleep, sometimes I'll encourage their parents to either read certain stories before bed or work with a guided imagery meditation to almost direct the dream state. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about that, or if you have any other tips or pointers for working with dreams, for, if possible, kind of guiding them so that they are softer to interpret, so that they don't have to feel so intense or sort of jagged. Anything that comes up for you around any of that?
So I think one of the reasons that dreams become this intense is because something in the unconscious is trying to tell us something, and it is sort of raising the volume the less we listen to it. So nightmares often come because there's something is happening that the unconscious is trying to tell us. So I think the first step to dream work is to sort of make a commitment to being receptive to the unconscious, to see that there is something inside us which has things to tell us, which we might not consciously know. And I think it's a great idea, like what you said, to sort of calm yourself down and to put yourself in that state. So I think dreams are, although sometimes they can feel very overstimulating, but, to kind of see that they're not trying to overstimulate you for no reason. Like a night, like if you start fostering a relationship with the unconscious, say that I want to remember my dream, just set that intention, I have a pen and paper, start writing down just the fragments. Even giving your unconscious that much importance, that you're listening to it, it's going to change the dream. Like, I think that's one of the most magical things about working with dreams, is that there is something which is talking to you, So I think, I don't know if that answered your question, but another thing I would say, if you want to just start working with your dreams and you don't remember them, on weekdays, you might be woken up with an alarm clock. So, start working with your dreams on the weekends, because it is really like this, a very, very liminal space where we just wake up, and you have only very little time to kind of jot them down, let's say.
I had a dream. I don't know if you have any insight on it, but I feel inspired to share with you. A few months back, where it was, the details of the dream were very hazy, and the details I remember seemed absolutely of no consequence. But I woke myself up laughing. I started laughing in my dream, and I must have started laughing, and I actually woke myself up, and I was laughing and like crying tears of laughter because it was so palpable. And I tried to remember what it was that happened, And all I could remember was like, it was so silly. It was like, there was nothing that really happened, but it was such an unusual experience. I've never had that happen. I've woken up from a scary dream before.
Right,
But that was the first time that I ever woke up from a laughter in a dream. And it was like for like 10 minutes I couldn't stop laughing. I had to get up and get some water and then I was totally wide awake because it was such an intense, vivid experience. And it was absolutely unusual. I've never had that happen before. Do you have any thoughts or insight about what that may have been?
That is unusual for me too, because I often don't hear about, dreams like that, but that sounds amazing. I would love to have a dream where I just wake up laughing. I have had dreams where I've woken up and I felt like, like in my real, not real, because your dreams are also your real life, but like in my waking life, I might not have had that feeling, but sometimes I remember having this dream of a sea turtle, and I woke up and I just felt this feeling of grace, which I don't often feel. Like I can count that thing, on one hand, and just feeling as if I had touched something, if I touched something bigger than me. So I think a lot of us have these experiences where, and I think that's really one of the things which can really help sensitive people, because we look outside and sometimes we don't see ourselves mirrored back. We don't see ourselves, validated. But when we come into a relationship with the inner world, we'll find that there are these parts of ourselves, and sometimes something bigger than us, which gives us energy, which holds us. So, and that dream came at a time when I was sort of having this really intense, like dark night of the soul, and it really gave me. It was not a thought, it was just a feeling, like what you said, like I woke up and I was laughing, and I just woke up and I felt as if something had held me and I could, go on a little bit more. So,
yeah. Wow. I have one last question that comes up for me. And again, I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse. When I was younger, I have these memories, these dreams. My bedroom was on one side of the house, my parents was on the other, and I used to have trouble sleeping as a child, and I would often walk down the hallway and go into their bedroom and either crawl in bed with them or just go in and look for some comfort. But I have memories of dreams of actually floating down the hallway. I used to have a lot of dreams as a child where I was almost hovering in space, like a hummingbird. Like I could move through space in the same way that we walk and we stand and we bend. It was like I could float and move and hover, and there's a piece of me that's like, no, that was real. And then there's another piece of me like, no, that was just a dream. That's not real. You weren't really able to levitate and float. And I hear from children that I work with that they have similar kinds of experiences. So I'm wondering if you have any insight into, is it, and I love the way that you said, dreams are real. They're just a different state, a different space. Like, was that real? Do you have anything to say about this sort of like, it almost feels like a lucid dream versus an asleep dream, like a dream that's being controlled, as though, we're sort of authoring what's going on in this in-between space that feels really magical and empowering. But maybe it's a little bit hard for some people to tap into. I'm just curious about your thoughts about any of that.
So first of all, I feel like this is such a synchronicity, because hummingbirds are a very, very, like, it's a very central metaphor for me. Like I have, like, my newsletter, it has a hummingbird on it, and it's because I have had some experiences with hummingbirds where, during some dark moments in my life, I kind of prayed, which I don't often do. I don't pray regularly, and I actually, like, a hummingbird came to me. So it happened a few times, not just once, which convinced my very rational mind that there was something to it, because I am a pretty rational person in some ways. But I think hummingbirds, so first of all, first of all, our dream world is as real as anything else. Like it is really, and having that, I think for, especially for sensitive children, for someone sensitive like you, I think the dream world, the hummingbird is really about someone who can, go into the hummingbird can move many different ways. It is very quick. It can move, it can just hover in the air. It can go to the, it can go into the front, go in the back. It can move in all these amazing directions. And I think it really, to me, I'm not sure if that will feel true for you, but I think it really is a symbol for someone who heals in a way where they can move. So this has come to me pretty recently, so I'm still thinking about this because I've thought about many different meanings of the hummingbird. But I think one of the meanings is that I used to think, because I'm a person who can really think back, like I can remember things from my childhood, and I used to feel like, oh, I wish I weren't like that. Oh, I wish I weren't able to access all those difficult things in my life. I wish I could just let go. Like a lot of sensitive people, I wish I could just let go. But recently, and very recently, in the last few months, I've been feeling like this ability to go forth, this ability to go back, this is part of what I am meant to do somehow. It is connected to my writing, it is connected to what I'm creating. And my feeling is that for you as a child, when that symbol came up, it really is like this awakening of a gift. I think you are, because you work with children, you are someone who is able to go in these different directions, work with the past, work with the present, work with the future. Like children are the future. So I think it is such a beautiful symbol. And I think in terms of it being real, if it felt, whether it was a dream or whether it was real, like I have woken up from some dreams where I've woken up and I have seen things and I'm like, oh my God, like, am I seeing an aura? I remember I see my husband and he's like, no, I wasn't here. And I was like, am I going crazy? Like, what is it? Were you here like a few hours ago? And I think it is you tapping into the energetic realm. So I am not sure whether it was a dream or whether it was a vision, but it was definitely you tapping into the symbolic realm, which we can do in our dreams or we can do in guided imagery. It's not, it's all there, like it's all interconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So many powerful things that you share with us today. And one of the things that I heard you say that just really resonated, that never occurred to me, was when you said that the dreams aren't just tapping into our higher self, but our lower self too. And I think sometimes as sensitive people, we don't really want to go there. We don't want to have to tap into the shadow side, the darker stuff. But when we do, it frees it. It's like it loses its power over us. We get the wisdom that it's meant to provide, and then we can move on, and it doesn't have to feel scary. The alligator doesn't have to be scary. It can actually be a bridge of inspiration to be more flexible, to be more adaptable. So thank you so much for sharing so much insight and wisdom. And I'm looking forward to going to sleep tonight and seeing what comes. I'm just totally excited about it. So really wonderful.
No, thank you so much. I love your work. I've followed your work for many years. It's a real pleasure to talk to you and to be part of Shift Network. Like I have bought Shift Network courses. Like I genuinely love Shift Network. And I think dreams are really like a connection to our intuition. And I hear so many sensitive people, like, from my friends or friends of friends, we all have such vivid dreams. And as you said, sometimes we are scared of going into the lower parts of ourselves as sensitive people. But, sometimes the lower parts also have things to teach us, especially, for example, if you are very nice, like I think of myself as a recovering nice person. As I grow older, I want to be more kind and less nice. Like every day that I live, that's what I hope to become. And to be less nice, you have to have some access to being, assertive. and to having the energy of anger, to being able to use it. So when you have those images come up and you're like, no, I don't want to see a gorilla in my dreams, or that doesn't mean that you have to become aggressive, but you need a little bit of that. You definitely need a teeny bit of that to actually, live your life the way you want to live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for people who want to learn more from you, you mentioned your blog several times. Can you share your website,
Yes.
any other projects that you're working on, how people can work with you?
So my website is walkingthroughtransitions.com, and you can find my newsletter there. It's called the Highly Sensitive Creative. And as I said, my two loves are sensitivity and creativity, and Dreamwork is a huge, huge love of mine. So in my next book, I'm working on my next book, which is for intuitive writers who work in a circular way, who do not work in a linear way. So Dreamwork is a huge thread in that, and I can see it being a huge thread in my work in the future as well. So if you're interested in any of those things, check out my blog, and all my links are there. So it would be great to have you there.
Thank you so much, Ritu. What a pleasure talking with you. And thank you to everybody for listening to this really wonderful, insightful session.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Bye for now.